Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a massive story, one full of colossal empires, incredible art, and just devastating conflict. We're going to unpack the epic history of Spain. So you have to ask yourself, how does all of that, a global empire, a golden age, a horrific civil war, come from one single peninsula? Well, we're going to dig into the forces of conquest, faith, and reinvention that didn't just build a country. They ended up shaping the entire world for centuries. Okay, so our story doesn't start with a single unified Spain. Not even close. It starts in a crucible, really. A land where totally different cultures clashed, merged, and each left their mark for good. For more than 1,000 years, you basically had three major powers that completely shaped this land. First up, the Romans. They built roads, cities, and they're the ones who named it Hispania. Then, after Rome fell, you had the Visigoths, a Germanic tribe who set up a warrior kingdom. But the biggest shift, the most dramatic change of all, came in 711 when Islamic forces, the Moors, came surging in from North Africa. They conquered almost the entire peninsula, bringing a whole new faith and culture with them. This created this really amazing dynamic. The South, which was known as Al-Andalus, became this incredible beacon of learning, of art and science, one of the most advanced places in Europe. At the exact same time, way up in the rugged northern mountains, these small Christian kingdoms were just holding on, slowly building up their strength. And that right there set the stage for a conflict that would last for centuries and really define medieval Spain. That 700-year struggle became known as the Reconquista. And you really have to let that sink in. For 700 years, the main driving purpose was reconquest. This forged a completely unique identity, one that fused this intense military purpose with an equally intense religious faith. And that combination, it was about to be unleashed on the rest of the world. So all of this history, the centuries-long fight, it all builds and then culminates in one single explosive year, a year that literally changed the map of the world forever. If there is one year you remember from Spanish history, make it 1492. It was just this critical inflection point where all these different historical threads smashed together with, well, world-altering consequences. So in this one single year, under the monarchs Isabella and Ferdinand, you get these three huge, intertwined events. First, they finally finish the Reconquista. This creates a unified, battle-hardened nation that's itching for a new mission. Well, that mission becomes global exploration, which leads right to Columbus. And a huge part of this new, unified Spanish identity was about religious purity, which led to the tragic expulsion of all of Spain's practicing Jews. In just 12 months, Spain was completely reborn, unified, imperial, and deeply intolerant. What happened next was just an explosion of global power. You had conquistadors carving out a massive empire. And from these mountains of silver in places like Potosi, this river of wealth just starts flowing across the Atlantic. And this wasn't just money. This was the fuel for Europe's most powerful armies. It was the foundation of a global empire. It made Spain, for all intents and purposes, the world's first superpower. But all that staggering wealth didn't just pay for wars. It bankrolled a cultural explosion. This golden age, the Siglo de Oro, gave the world the absolute masterpieces of Velázquez and, of course, the immortal story of Don Quixote. Art that was really grappling with the triumphs and also the contradictions of this powerful new empire. But here's the thing about empires. The peak is so often the beginning of the end. And paradoxically, that same river of silver that built the Golden Age also ended up crippling its economy at home and planting the seeds of its decline. The contrast between the 2 centuries of Habsburg rule is just stark. In the 16th century, you have these incredibly powerful kings like Philip II running a global empire at its absolute zenith. But the 17th century, that tells a totally different story. It's a story of overextended armies, constant, draining wars, empty treasuries, and just the slow, agonizing decline of a superpower. A few key blows just shattered the empire's foundation. The defeat of the Spanish Armada, for example, wasn't just a naval loss. It was a devastating psychological blow. Generations of super expensive wars in Europe just bled the country dry. Then Napoleon invades in 1808, which creates this power vacuum that its American colonies took full advantage of, launching their own independence movements. And just like that, by 1826, the source of Spain's immense wealth, its American empire was gone.
And this right here is the crucial turning point. With its empire gone, all of Spain's conflicts turned inward. The entire 19th century just became this brutal, chaotic struggle over what Spain should even be. Should it be a modern republic, a traditional monarchy? It was just this cycle of coups and constitutions and civil wars that left these deep, deep scars and a lot of unresolved questions for the next century. So, this deep-seated instability, it didn't just vanish. It festered, and it all culminated in the truly traumatic events of the 20th century, where Spain, yet again, became a battleground for competing visions of its own future. By the 1930s, the country had just completely fractured. The Second Spanish Republic was trying to bring modern, secular democracy to Spain, but the division between the left-wing Republicans and the right-wing nationalists was just too deep. In 1936, a military coup attempt lit the fuse, and it sparked a brutal civil war that absolutely horrified the world.
And you have to understand, this was more than just a civil war. It was basically a dress rehearsal for World War II. You had the world's biggest ideologies clashing on Spanish soil. The Soviet Union backed the Republicans. Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy threw their military might behind General Franco's nationalists, testing out the very weapons and tactics they were about to unleash on the rest of Europe. After 3 horrific years, Franco and his allies won. Franco's victory plunged Spain into an almost 40-year dictatorship. And while the rest of Western Europe was rebuilding and democratizing after World War II, Spain was basically frozen in time, totally isolated and cut off from the continent's progress right up until Franco died in 1975. But what happened next was, well, it was truly remarkable. A lot of people were afraid there'd be another war, but instead, Spain pulled off this peaceful transition to democracy. Franco's own handpicked successor, King Juan Carlos I, he defied everyone's expectations and actually steered the country away from autocracy. A new constitution was written, and by 1986, Spain had taken its place right at the heart of modern Europe. It was just a stunningly successful and peaceful transformation. And that really brings Spain's story full circle. I mean, from a land of competing cultures to a global empire, through this long, painful decline and a brutal dictatorship, it has reemerged as this modern, democratic European nation. Its history is just this powerful testament to resilience, to transformation, and it leaves us wondering, how will this complex past, a story of both incredible golden ages and really deep shadows, continue to shape its journey forward?